Into the Breach is excited to be teaming up with Nine Line Apparel, a veteran-owned apparel company that celebrates the spirit of freedom, courage, and American values. Go check out ninelineapparel.com for freedom-loving patriotic gear perfect for your family members, first responders, veterans, and active duty service members. When you're done selecting the amazing merchandise and apparel Nine Line has to offer, punch in the code ITB20, that's India Tango Bravo 20, for a 20% discount off your next purchase at ninelineapparel.com. Vet TV is a streaming service created by veterans for veterans, with over 30 different series to choose from, including our new series Battle Lab that features special operations soldiers going head-to-head with the newest tactics and threats on the modern battlefield. Into the Breach listeners have an exclusive discount of paying $1 a month for the first 2 months of subscription with the code BREACH. So head on over to Vet TV and type in BREACH at checkout to receive this incredible offer for your Vet TV subscription. Thank you for listening, and now back to the show. All right, here we are back at it. The week of March 15th. We're recording here March 16th. I'm all out of sorts. Happy St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Happy 0317 Scout Sniper Day. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on. Nick, co-host, always love seeing you, brother. And then we have Joseph England, former Tier 1 operator, TFO, and pilot. So hell of a resume, known as Stoic Viking. He's been, honestly, I've been checking your work out, obviously, with the Iran war kicking off. I would say you're an expert, Iranian expert. You speak Farsi. Yeah. You studied the region for a very long time. And I thank you so much for coming on to Breaching with the Boys and Into the Breach podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Absolutely. All right, you know what? We're just going to kick it off. Kind of go through what's happened. Myself and Nick were texting today, and we're like, well, I sent him a list, and he's like, this is just like today. We could do a show every day.
Yeah.
And the last 3 weeks have actually since January 1st, since the Venezuelan raid, OSINT and the world have been off the chain for whoever's writing season 2026 of the world is crushing it. Yeah. This is some of it's not even believable.
Yeah.
But but I guess the one thing we'll start off here, which it made me laugh, is here, I'll pull this up on my screen, is finding out that possibly, again, this is a rumor, that Iran's new supreme leader is gay. And I don't know. Let me share the screen here.
Yeah.
Window, entire screen. There. All right, share. Oh, of course, it's going to repeat. Here, let me pop it up here. Here, right here. It says Iran. This is from Vistaguard 24. But Iran's new supreme leader is gay, says new U.S. intelligence. Who knows how much is propaganda, but what made me laugh is the description, which is President Donald Trump was presented the U.S. intelligence suggesting that Iran's newly appointed supreme leader, I'm going to butcher this all the time, Mahatma Khamenei is gay.
It's Motaba Khamenei.
Khamenei. Yeah. There we go. From the expert. There we go. Yeah. The briefing detailed allegations of a long-term relationship between a 56-year-old leader and his former childhood tutor, claims that U.S. spy agencies reportedly view as credible. This is the best part. Upon being briefed about this, President Trump reportedly burst into laughter, while others present in the room thought it was hilarious. Yeah. One senior intelligence official reportedly could not stop laughing for days following the briefing. The intelligence also suggested that the late Ayatollah Ali Khomeini was aware of his son's personal issues and had longstanding concerns regarding his suitability to lead the Islamic regime in Iran. So,
what a headline!
Yeah, right.
So that was not on my card.
This is funny that this is the first subject we talk about, because there actually is something about this particular issue in that country that actually very few people know about. So if you guys remember back in 2009, there was a guy who was the president of Iran. His name was Ahmadinejad. It's always a mouthful to say his name. He was like the little short, hobbit-looking guy. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was very anti-America as far as presidents of Iran go, and he was very loud. Well, he made a statement at one point, I think in 2009, somewhere near the UN, but he made the claim that there's no gays in Iran. And Iran actually has a way to technically get around and make this statement true. So, and I don't know exactly where it falls, but this is from reporting about 10 years ago. For anybody who doesn't know, one of the what is Thailand known for? Thailand is known for transitioning, and it's actually sponsored. It's actually sponsored by the government. Like the government actually has programs that actually help people strength. And the number one country that is sponsored by transition by their government is Thailand. Number two is Iran. So what Iran does is when they identify somebody who may have such tendencies, they transition them. So they are not gay.
Yeah.
So
I have heard this.
Yes. Yeah. So because of this, right, this is like a bit of a stigma. And to be honest, if I had to look at this objectively, I think that this is at best good propaganda on our part. Especially the way that Trump says things, like if I could do the impersonation, he's good, it's just, there you go. I just can imagine that the one comedian who does the best impression.
Oh, Shane Gillis.
Yeah, Shane Gillis. I can imagine him doing this. It's just great. And then plus there's the reports about him going to London for fertility treatment due to they wanted him to have a son to continue the line. Whether or not that was a good idea politically, that's also Ayatollah Khamenei, his dad, wasn't really sure that that was something that they should do, because if they start if he was going to be the next leader, then that could be misconstrued that this is no longer a theocracy. This is now a return to a monarchy. So that's where a lot of the intelligence that comes out, whether or not they actually wanted him to do that. But they did want him to have another child, that we know for sure, or have a child. I don't know if he had any at the time. But you combine that with like other rumors like this, and then you get a really good roll of propaganda that comes out there. And whether it's good or not, it's definitely these questions are being asked within that government, within that theocracy, which is not helping anything that's going on over there. So it's probably decent propaganda.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, I've heard about the transition in Iran. I've heard about that for a few years, and I mean, it's not. I think sometimes the Western mind can't comprehend. Like my wife, God bless her, she'll like hear things. She'll be like, "Is this real?" Like people will text me sometimes things about Afghanistan. You're like, "Yeah, that's real."
Yeah.
The big one that we never dealt with. Thank God. But it was, like Afghanistan was Man Love Thursdays. Yep. Now, we knew it was kind of happening, and it's an Islamic country. And so, it's this weird thing, but also the dealing with like boys, them molesting boys essentially. Yeah. And all this other stuff. And I had people texting me every time it pops up in the news. If someone would text me, I'm like, well, yes, we heard about it. We didn't deal with it. Like we didn't have any issues. Like, we didn't have any soldiers doing that. Yeah. One of our guys, you could tell, one of the Chai boys, called Chai boys. Yeah. He was like 18 though, so he looked pretty young, but he was 18. Like we had his age verified, but we had known that this was an issue before we left it. I mean, that was 2009. Yeah. And so when you look at this type of propaganda, which I do agree, and for the memes of 2026 kicking off the year,
great memes.
It's hilarious. Yeah, it's great memes. It's hilarious. But it wouldn't shock me though either. I mean, you might know more than we do. Like, does he have a wife? Is there? I'm sure the intel coming out of that's like, yeah, it's good propaganda, but at the end of the day, is that still some kernel of truth?
There's actually no confirmed reporting on him being gay. It's there's some like let's just call them unconfirmed sources. Which, to be honest, I wouldn't really put much stock into it. I think it's good propaganda, but other than that, there's really nothing that can actually confirm that. So we think we just have to leave it at that.
He's an amputee now, isn't he?
So it's my.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's my. So it's my understanding.
That's like a Netflix special right there.
Yeah. 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 So I haven't seen what I haven't seen. The last thing that I saw was a broken leg. I haven't seen any confirmed reporting about an amputation, but I will say that the fact that we have not seen him is good indication that whatever going on, like especially like head, there's definitely some disfigurement because the second that anytime we have done an operation against them or Israel's done, the first thing that they do is their leaders get on TV. And the fact that we have not seen him means that definitely it's a good chance that something has happened to his facial region that they don't want him to be seen on camera.
Yeah, they said that. I saw the injured leg first, broken.
Yeah.
Recently, I've seen amputation, and he's in Moscow. Might be that's kind of a rumor.
That's what I heard as well.
Yeah. And then he would have been killed, but the reporting had said that he had stepped outside of his house.
Yeah.
Like so, as the bomb was dropping, he walked out, and then so that's why he's ridiculously maimed.
Yeah.
To your point, Joe.
Yeah.
And that's coming from all the reporting as it's coming in.
He better be
I agree with you though.
Moscow, he might get mobilized.
Yeah.
He's going to the
he's going to the front for the Ukraine.
He'll go to the front. He'll join the other guys with crutches.
Well, so what I know is that the things that we do know, we don't know if he's actually in Moscow. That's currently a rumor. I don't know any confirmed reporting that he is. I honestly don't think that, in my professional opinion, I don't think that he would because the hospitals in Moscow are not that much better than they are in Tehran. So if he was disfigured, for him to get on a flight, which that's a risk unto itself to leave the country like that, just to go to a hospital that's really all not that much better. Because one thing, if you've ever met the Persian community, the most common name in the Persian community, especially in the diaspora, is doctor, right? So there's definitely a lot of doctors in the Iranian culture. It's kind of like the Asians of the Middle East. Like they have a standards. But so I don't think, me personally, I don't think that I'm not in, so I don't see the current up-to-date reporting. But I don't think that he would have left the country, especially with everything that's going on. And then that's also interesting of what the current leadership is looking like because of all the people that we've killed so far.
Yeah, which has been well over. I mean, last week it was 45.
Yeah,
every day I keep seeing confirmed kill. So I think it's over 50 now.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing. And again, this is kind of we'll dive in here probably in a few minutes about what your thoughts on how all this pans out.
Yeah.
We're going to solve it here in the next 40 minutes, so don't worry. Trump, you get the U.S. can look at our podcast. And yeah. And
what's up, DT?
Yeah, right. Yeah, Donnie T, he watches, big fan. But I guess one of your takes to Karg Island. We hit 90 targets, destroyed them. Obviously, it's an oil refinery. It's a big thing for Iran, big thing for us too. And we've seen Marines particularly being mobilized in the Middle East, or I always say in the Middle East, but towards that direction. Marines and the Fast Company are notorious for basically going into embassies. Obviously, there's always the Army, but Marines have that specific. You guys know a little bit more than us, but Marines have that little weird detail of being the president's men, where we can kind of get
absolutely,
as a larger ground force opposed to say CAG or Dev Group or them going in. Obviously, nothing's happened yet, but clearly there's tensions going on in the Strait of Hormuz and then Karg Island.
Yeah.
What's your strategic thoughts on that?
So Karg Island, it's where 90% of their crude oil is processed. So almost everything of all the oil that comes out of the country goes to Karg Island. So we destroyed probably every piece of military hardware on that island, but we'd left the oil infrastructure completely intact. So this is kind of a big flex move, which is, hey, I can do whatever I want. And now I've stripped what little defenses you have there. Don't make me take out your entire economy. So it's honestly, I think it's kind of an impressive move because he could have wrecked their entire economy, right? But that's not what he wants. It's not currently what he wants to do because the overall goal is, they want to take out their abilities to make the nuclear program. They want to take out their aerospace, which is basically their missile systems. They take out their navy because that's really the only thing that they basically took out everything that can have effect outside of mainland Iran. They've destroyed it already. And so now that we've taken away that, now that's left is just what's inside Iran, and majority of the population is supportive of a regime change. And by wrecking the actual oil, even with the sanctions stuff, it would probably do more harm than to the people of Iran than it would to the government of Iran. So I think it's a good move and just a big flex, if you will. And then as far as the Marines go, that detachment of the 2,500 Marines in Japan, like this is especially what that unit is designed for, is rapid deployment to supplement areas like this. And this is what they're trained for. So if there ever was going to be someone who was going to, say, seize Karg Island or something like that, or protect the embassies, Army's not trained for that. Well, not the regular Army, right? Regular Army, that's a sledgehammer, right? We need precision tools. And, I have heard through unconfirmed sources from friends that one of the Tier 1 assault squadrons has been essentially put on readiness. But that and the 2,500 Marines, like they're precision instruments, and them mobilizing is, I think some people think that it's an ode to or a preview to possibly a ground force in Iran, boots on the ground. I don't think it is. I think it is a great precaution because if any other embassies are affected or they need some sort of immediate action, like taking Karg Island or some other sort of facility that takes minimal effort, it doesn't require, divisions of army, that Marine detachment is one of the best units to do that.
Yeah, and I would say I agree too. I mean, the Fast Company and getting them on ground, 100%. I don't think it's a good move to put them on haphazardly or like it's got to be. I don't want to say desperate measures to put them on, but I hate to say it. In the public view, the success of this operation, through it's incredible success. And we talked about this last week. I mean, we're kicking ass and taking names, but in the public view, you feel like we've lost the war. Say what you will, but putting boots on the ground is really going to give fuel to the fire to opposition. And now, granted, I do appreciate the admin going, hey, we're pushing forward no matter what the headlines say, which is what you should be doing. Yeah. But throwing Marines or anybody on ground is, I mean, it's not going to stop the operation, but it's definitely it's going to upset a lot of people. Yeah. So if they go on into just Karg Island, by the way, not even talking about mainland. Yeah. But Karg Island, like you better have a good goddamn reason that those Marines are going to be on ground. Yeah. And taking that objective. Absolutely.
And also we have to remember who Donald Trump is, and and he is all about posturing. If you've the art of the deal, the book that he basically his entire personality and strategic decisions are made by, he likes to basically talk a big game, posture, and basically make people come to do his terms based off of everything like, hey, I can do this, right? And a lot of the things that he's done, for example, just taking out the military capabilities on Karg Island and bringing the Marines over, definitely kind of still falls within that particular strategy. So there's a good chance that the Marines will never get used, but they're there. So you can be like, look, I've got these guys, they're ready to go. Don't make me use them, right? So
what's your thoughts on the me and Nick talked about this again last week in the conversation. I truly do believe, we had, I mean, this happened years ago. I mean, you would have been still active duty, but like the Syrian red line, right, with Obama. You use chemical weapons or that red line, you cross it, we're doing something.
Yep.
Nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
And same with like Biden. And I feel like, I honestly, God, man, I feel like the red line when he talked about protesters was a real red line, and people thought it was like a political bluff or big posturing. I don't know how much of a factor that was, but I do believe, I think the killing of the protesters and basically Iran being like, we'll do what we want, like we're going to cross your red line, I think actually was like, yeah, we're going. I feel like that was a factor just because it, it not bruised his ego, but you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where like, oh, they're calling me out, I guess I'm going to have to do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. And that's a good point. So let me back up. I'll give you an example of where we've seen this time and time again. It's actually specifically, let's go to Ukraine. Because, like Obama put out red lines in Syria, but he put out more specifically red lines in Ukraine. I believe it was 2013 when Crimea happened.
It was 2014,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
14, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I remember that because obviously there was some involvement with us, and he put the red lines, and Putin crossed them, and nothing happened. So, if you look at when Russia has timed their invasions of Ukraine, he waited. He did it during Obama's term. Trump came on, and through the number of strikes that Trump did against Syria and stuff like that, there's a reason like that Putin waited till Biden was in office to enact phase 2 of Ukraine. So and especially with everything that Trump has been doing recently, and obviously I don't necessarily agree with everything he's done, but I can tell you he is creating a level of deterrence throughout the world because he is so unpredictable, which a lot of people say is like, oh, he's so unpredictable, he must have World War III. Well, also there's a case to say because he's being so unpredictable is the reason why people don't want to do anything, because nobody knows what this man will do, and he's proven it time and time again. You want to talk smack, say, hey, President Trump, come and get me, and literally the next night you get snatched up out of your country, out of your palace, and then you're in a prison in New York and you're in your Nike Tech jumpsuit, bro. Like, suddenly every other dictator in South and Central America got really, really quiet.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we can lead a little bit into that. We'll get back to Iran here, but Cuba. Yeah. Cuba is now on the table, and they're not even putting up a fight here. No. Let me.
They've got nationwide blackouts now.
Yeah, and I think if Maduro had not been snatched like he did, you would hear a lot more coming out of the leader of Cuba right now. But because he knows, and that's one of the reasons why he's having conversations, is I would say that there's definitely a direct correlation, if not a causation, of why this happened, and suddenly he's in talks with the U.S. government.
Yeah, in fact, here, let me pull this up right here. This is, I think, a few days ago. The dictator Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, butcher that, announced to the nation that they have given into the pressure and are officially in negotiations with the United States. Because about to fall. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But there is this one here. I do have the blackouts are real.
Yeah.
Here, let me pull that one up. This video here. Don't worry, I try to be professional. There you go. There. So, you can see there that it says labeled, Cuban people have set fire to the Communist Party's headquarters. Yeah. And they're, like, as Nick said, rolling blackouts right now. So, or they're blackout. So, it's a cool, again, I'm all for it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for it. Like, we're talking about Carnival Cruise, man. I'll be one of the first ones hopping on that bad bear and going over to Cuba. My parents have been into Cuba from cruise lines a few years ago, and they thought they're like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Nick was stationed in Cuba.
Yeah, I served on the fence line there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, catching them as they came over and under the fence. So
that's crazy.
Good to get the Gitmo.
Yeah.
But But again, though, you're saying though, like Central South America. I mean, we talked about it before. I mean, what is Cuba going to do? I mean, and they even said they've made some passing comments to the White House in briefings. The administration's like, yeah, we're giving them like 60 days. Yeah, they'll be next. Like, it's not even like a joke. They're like joking. Like, Cuba's next.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to see the.
I wouldn't even anticipate resistance from the people there.
So it's interesting. So if you look at the history of Cuba and when they negotiate, this has happened before. And basically, it's almost every time that their country is essentially on the verge of failing for some reason, like they are now. And that's usually when they'll like, hey, all right, we'll talk about some concessions. And that's exactly what's going on. But I do think it's accelerated by the fact that Trump did snatch up Maduro, and there's all these clips of Marco Rubio just crushing it, and there's that one, I believe it's a congressional hearing, where he gets asked, "Oh, will you here today say that we won't do any regime change?" He's like, "No, actually, regime change in Cuba, we would love that," and so just having. I think people forget, because other administrations have done this. If we're in like a conflict, we're going to war, one of the worst things you can do is tell your enemy on the news, like, what our left and right limits are, right? Like, this is only as far as we'll go. You know what? You just gave them a goal. All they have to do is outlast you. And so I definitely think that's one thing that they're doing well right now is Pete Hegseth. Like, he talks to the media all the time. He's like, I'm not telling you our plans. He's like, I'm not telling you what we will and will not do. That's for us and us only. They need to live in fear. So. Yeah, because they're like, "What's next? What's going to happen?" He's like, "I'm not gonna tell you that." Or like, "Hey," or somebody was like, "How much do we have left in our munitions?" He's like, "Plenty." I'm not going to tell you. Yeah. Like, why would I? Oh, we're running low. We're almost out. Yeah, I think he said they have unlimited ammo. And maybe for any of you Metal Gear Solid fans, I think Pete Hegseth found the red bandana. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and I think that's a bit of a game, and we can get into this point too, a little bit of, obviously it's all political, obviously, but geopolitics. But, I don't know, and I might be wrong about this, but Joe Kent resigned today. I have it on my list of notes. Did you, by any chance, know him? I did actually. I did. Yeah. So he got there. 2013. So I think he was out of OTC by some point in 2014. And so he operated in a different squadron than I did. And so the unit does jumps. Like, we do our unit like free fall jumps every single month. And I definitely ran into and talked to Joe a number of times at our unit jumps. So, so I didn't know him like on the like a extreme personal level, but we definitely had talked a little bit. But I knew that he was one of the warrant officers, case officers within the unit. And then after that, he did what a lot of us do, especially ones who have an extensive tactical background, in addition to the intelligence, which is they end up going to ground branch. And he went there. I don't remember what year he left. He left around the same time I did, to be honest. So yeah, because I know he was, or they allude to. My buddy Marty Scovelin Jr. Do you know Marty at all? I do not. No. Okay, so he wrote the book on Shannon Kent. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Joe, she had liked his work on Black Rifle Coffee before she died, was killed by ISIS in the suicide bombing. Yeah. I think it was 2018. And so he had written stuff, and then Joe approached him, I guess, for an article about her or something like that, or he had already written an article or something, and then Joe was like, "Hey, I want you to write her biography," because Marty is an Army Ranger, and he was going to try out for TFO, and then way back in the day, back in like 2000, it would have been probably like 2009 or maybe a little bit later than that. But he had a business that took off, so he decided to pursue civilian career. But he had worked with them, and then was like, I want to do that. So he was training up to do it, but he kind of knows that world a little bit. But he did her biography. So I listened to her book because he's a good friend of mine, and he came on the podcast a few times. So
but yeah, I thought, like I said, I figured he was TFO, but I don't know what, I have my thoughts on it. I'm not diehard either way.
Yeah.
I have my thoughts on his reasoning, you know. So I don't know. I would say, what's your guys' thoughts? I know, you know, I've been talking a while, so, you know, Nick, what's your thoughts on it? Joe, what's your thoughts?
So, as far as support for the war in Iran, I ran a poll earlier today on my B&B Instagram, and it was 4 questions, 4 initial ones, and I'll be doing more later in the week for the show. And I'll probably just do one every week just to, you know, kind of monitor support for this.
Yeah, see how it goes up and down.
Yeah, so far after 7 hours, we've had about 8,000 people like participate in the poll. And the first question is, now that we're over 2 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, do you support the United States and Israel being at war with Iran? And there's 4 options: strongly support, partially support, with parentheses like need more information from the government, undecided to neutral, and strongly oppose. And we had 10% support, 16% partially support, 20% undecided, and 54% strongly oppose. Mm-hmm. And so for the next one is, do you think the government has, after 2 weeks, properly explained why the Operation Epic Fury needed to happen? And 4% said yes, 10% said partially, 8% said neutral or undecided, and 78% said no. Next question is, do you think the United States has a plan for the war and what comes next? And 8% said yes, 14% said partially, 9% said neutral, undecided, and 69% said no. Nice.
Yeah.
And then the last question is in relation to Trump talking about NATO and their support for this. Do you think the United States NATO allies should honor Donald Trump's request and become involved in the war with Iran? And 12% said yes, 14% were undecided neutral, and 74% said no. So that seems to be the popular opinion at the moment, at least with my demographic, which is typically more of the veteran community that is opposing the war. But yeah, I'll run another poll next week.
Yeah. So,
we'll see.
And I talked about this in one of my videos, where I think was one of my first videos, where I'd already, before this whole thing happened, I did a YouTube video called Understanding Iran. And it was because I like to do these geopolitical videos where I can help people to understand things from an apolitical point of view. I started with Somalia because of the whole Minnesota thing, because I did operations there. I know why their culture is like that, how it came like that. It didn't always used to be like that, and why it's there. Like there's a reason why their culture's like. And Iran is a whole nother thing, right? There's a lot of nuances, a lot of things people do not know, because unless you've dealt with it directly, you don't really quite understand it. Because, you know, we know a lot about Iraq and Afghanistan because we went to war with them, right? We've been playing shadow games with Iran for, you know, the better part of 47 years. So, and a lot of people, unless you've dealt with it directly. But one thing that I talked about in this specific video is that most of us and all the veterans, we know we were lied into the Iraq war, right? We know. I was there as early as 2007. I was during the surge, and I was there, like, believed everything I heard. Weapons of mass destruction were here for the greater good. And then later on you learn they were lied into that war. Having said that, right, knowing that, and everybody who's lost people there, you know, you sort of have this now distrust for the government, for, you know, the decision makers at the top in the military, who should have, you know, not just been yes men. And then you get these people, so all these veterans, right, especially the ones who get out, and probably the ones who are doing these polls, like, you know, we remember Iraq, and this feels a lot about like Iraq, right? Like, this is how it starts. You know, there's this really shitty regime that's involved, and there's some similarities, right? For a lot of people who aren't as well educated and understand the nuances of this particular culture, it looks the same. It looks similar. So I understand it. And especially because, let's take Joe, right? I didn't know him on a personal level, but I knew, we had a few conversations. I knew what he did in the unit. And I knew what he did afterwards. And his wife got killed. So, here we are doing these things. He's a veteran of the Iraq war, like the rest of us. His wife gets killed. So, it's understandable that unless he sees a reason for this, like a reason that's just like, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like a good reason to actually continue to do this and not risk lives. And, a few people have been killed. I understand where he's coming from in the fact that he doesn't think that this is a good idea because, he's had so much loss, especially from his wife and friends and everything like that. So I get it. I would say this is different than Iraq, and for a number of different reasons, and why I think that for the people who don't think that we are being told everything. One, we're never going to be told everything, right? Even if you're in the military, even if you're at even the tier 1 levels, you're still not going to be told everything. It's called compartmentalization for a reason. But I do think as far as conflicts have gone, and especially just because I have a very intimate knowledge of this particular target set, I would say majority of what's being told to us is pretty much true, because one of the biggest issues for them is one is their nuclear threat to the region, to Israel, and then eventually if they ever get to the point where they can do intercontinental ballistic missiles, then they become a threat to us. And also because they're kind of like Russia, they're trying to make friends with everybody who doesn't like us in Central and South America, like Mexico. Isn't it odd that they don't have trade with Mexico, but yet have the largest embassy in Mexico is the Islamic Republic embassy? Coincidence? I think not. But so what Iran does, in addition to their threat of the nuclear capabilities, where they could eventually start launching missiles at Israel, because when your slogan for 47 years has been death to Israel and death to America, believe them, right? I don't think there's any reason not to believe them. But the other part is their Quds Force, which was really made into the kind of international world threat by Qasem Soleimani, who he killed in 2020. All these proxies, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the Syrians, they're friends with Hamas because your enemy is my enemy, kind of different things. Everywhere where there's Shias, they have their hands in it. And then obviously anybody where they don't, they're trying to become friends with everybody. This is what they do. And those threats, and they are directly responsible for killing Americans in different areas. You've got the Marine barracks bombings, the attacks by the Houthis attacking shipping lanes. People have been killed. And the Iranians and the RGC, especially the Quds Force, are directly responsible for this, by proxy. So, and they're only continuing to get stronger. So getting rid of this threat, and then if you were able to, right, getting rid of the Quds Force and the RGC, that's a whole nother problem. Getting rid of their missile systems, getting rid of their Navy, and getting rid of their drone program is one thing that we are capable of doing without getting boots on the ground, or at least like 99% of it. But to get rid, if we somehow were able to get the Iranian people to rise up and take over, but they would have to combat the RGC, because the RGC not only, even before this, is so embedded in the government, the RGC actually controls almost every economic industry within the country. But because we've killed so many of their theocratic leadership, their clerics, so many have died that the IRGC, who was already kind of like the most powerful behind them, has actually started to take over. And now, because none of the clerics want to take over, so the IRGC has stepped up. And the guy who stepped up, and I may butcher his name if I remember, it's Ahmad Vahidi. And why he is sort of significant is because Ahmad Vahidi created the Quds Force in 1989, and he controlled it for 10 years before Qasem Soleimani. I like to call him the Persian world's most interesting man from the Dos Equis commercials, who then took that and then he turned it into the world like spy force that threatens so much of the region, including like assassins who are here in the United States, other countries, Europe, all these different things. It's all because of Qasem Soleimani. Well, anyways, Qasem Soleimani obviously got killed in 2020, and his predecessor is not quite as good as he is, but Qasem Soleimani predecessor, his mentor, is now in charge of the IRGC because we killed the previous one, and he came in and he's taken over the role. And until someone really steps up, and because how much the IRGC is taking over sort of the slack from the theocratic leadership of them getting killed, the IRGC is gaining more and more power by the day. And for us to take over the country, for the Iranians to take over the country, they would actually have to take on the IRGC. And they are extremely embedded in that country.
So that's and it seems like as any country, that's the toughest part. Like, is going to be ousting or the embedded, people that the hardliners.
Absolutely,
because they've been doing. I mean, that even like in other countries, you're going to have two parties. So which party are you taking on? The other half of the country has to take on the other party.
Yeah.
Like it would be like it's a tough game. However you spin it. I and again, I guess I'm a little bit more pro-war on everything, but like, you don't even need nukes for me to do it. I just thought killing the protesters was like, yeah, green light. Let's
oh yeah,
but, yeah. Like it doesn't take a lot for me to be like, yeah, let's go. Like, why not? Like, we build this stuff, let's use it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on all those fronts, and I do feel like, again, this is kind of a broader thing within. By the way, you did an amazing explanation there. That kind of blew my mind. Pumped to have you on Sunday. Like, I think the politics, it goes beyond Iran. I think there's a lot of stuff going on with our own internal politics, especially in the Republican Party, that you're starting to see that rift.
Yep.
And a lot of that information, like I said, I got nothing against Joe Kent, and I totally understand his reasoning, but there is a really weird thing happening politically. He announced he's going on Tucker Carlson right away. You're like, of course he is. And he's like, and his explanation, I wish I had it pulled up. It's the one thing I don't have. His kind of is the way he was framing why he was kind of giving it up, and I wouldn't call it anti-Semitic because I think that gets thrown around a bit, but I do think there's a bit of the Israeli rabbit hole that people get sucked into.
Yeah.
And he wrote that in his letter resigning that the Israelis
were
killed
a couple reasons why people message me they do not support the war, and one of the most common ones was more along the lines of like doing Israel's bidding. Right up there with the Epstein files and people voting for no new wars, and here we are.
This is probably one thing that really annoys me. So you cannot have there's certain things, like two things can be true at the same time, but certain things are opposing. You can't have them at the same time. So either, which obviously whenever Trump runs for election, we're told that he's a madman that nobody can control, which is like he's going to start World War III because nobody can control him. But yet at the same time, these are the same people that say Israel controls him. So I'm sorry, both of those things cannot be true at once, right? So, and then you have to understand, Trump, for better or for worse, nobody controls that man. Like, look at his Twitter account. Nobody controls this man. From an intelligence standpoint of view, a lot of people may not know this, all right? We have many allies. We've got our Five Eyes. We have our other European allies, right? The French, the German. I can tell you, from an intelligence standpoint of view, one of the intelligence services that we trust the least from an American intelligence community is the Israeli intelligence community and the Mossad. We do not trust them for a lot of different reasons. We just so happen, just because of the way things are in that particular area, just because we have something that we would like for us diplomatically, and it's something that it also works for them, does not mean Israel is controlling us. Those two things can can be right at once. Like those two things can be happening at the same time. This can serve our purpose. This can serve their purpose. And I can tell you, we have been looking at this Iranian problem set for a long time, and we were having serious conversations about this 12 years, which I actually was a part of. And that's when I know that, and this is what I talked about in one of my videos, we in that room, everybody was a veteran of the Iraq War, and almost everybody in that room was like, we need not to go in there. We need to empower the Iranian people to rise up. You know, because they have two militaries, get the Artesh to basically essentially take on the IRGC or take away enough of their power that the IRGC feels helpless. Because then this happens of two things. One, we lost our political capital going into Iraq. If we never went into Iraq, we might have the political capital to go into Iran. We might be able to do this years ago, but that's neither here nor there. Two, if we were to go in, boots on the ground, make it happen, however costly it is, that automatically takes legitimacy away from the new regime. Like the new, like even if it's a democratic, because they'll just always look at it and be like, hey, you're installed by the US, right? So for a number of different reasons, one, their culture is more receptive to this type of new government and new revolution. Iraq and Afghanistan, those are completely two different cultures. I know a lot of people who don't understand Iran think that like, oh, it's in the middle. Iranians could be not farther in culture from Iraqis and Afghanis, right? The majority of, especially the Persians, right? Obviously, there's other groups that are Iranians that are not Persians, but that's we don't need to get into that. But they are a nationalistic community. Like and that was one of the issues with Iraq and Afghanistan. They're so tribalistic. Like it's so hard for them to get this identity. And then plus, majority of the people who rose up at the time in 1979 to put down the Shah, because the Shah, between them and the Savak, which was their secret police, kind of like their SS, he was definitely getting rid of some of his political opponents and doing some other things he probably shouldn't have been doing. And there was a reason why the population rose up. But the population now knows, hey, we traded one authoritarian monarch for an authoritarian regime and are kind of like, okay, our bad, made a mistake, we're ready for a change. And so you have this, last time I heard, I'm sure it's slightly inflated, but 80% of the population inside of Iran would welcome regime change. So that isn't really exactly the same. That's not what it was like in the other countries. But also there's other issues. And like I said, the IRGC being as one, a part of sort of that ideological theocratic Islamic Republic. And then also they're not dumb. The IRGC was created because they didn't trust the normal military. So, and since then, the IRGC, which originally started as like 10, 15,000 people, and ever since Khamenei became Ayatollah, because the first Ayatollah was Khomeini with an O. The second one, who after he died, is Khamenei, so that's kind of confusing. And Khamenei was a big fan of the IRGC, so he supported the IRGC getting bigger, and all these things. And now there are, I think, 160,000 people. And because they also don't trust the Artesh, they started putting in the senior leadership of the Artesh IRGC loyal officers. So, but I would say majority of the people in the Artesh are like conscripts, or just people who generally support with the general population. But their current commanders, because the IRGC is afraid of their military, as they should be. But that really is their best opportunity. These opposition groups, they may be able to cause pressure, but they don't have the power to take on an elite organization like the IRGC, because that's 160,000 in the IRGC. That is not even counting. I've heard different numbers. The 600,000 Besiege members, which is their local militant force, and they're the ones who actually put down the protests. They're the ones who are actually doing majority of the killing of the protesters, and that's like a 3 or 4 times, sized organization. So there's a lot going on here. So it's a very complicated situation. But me, the person that I am, because I dealt with the Quds Force, I see the threat that the Quds Force is. So I think this is a good thing, because I do think that the Persians would be able to do this if they were able to get past the IRGC. I don't know exactly what mission sets Joe Kent was on, so I can understand if he was never involved in this intimately, may not think that this is that great of an idea, but I've been in the Persian community for most of my career, dealt with the Quds Force directly, and that's why I support it in its current aspect. But I can see why other people who don't quite have as an intimate of a knowledge of what's actually going on over there.
Yeah, and I think that might be the frustrating thing, because you're seeing the U.S. politics and the rift within the Republican Party clearly playing a role into support of the Iranians, or just like the situation at hand. Like you said, it's a lot of the Israel's making us do it. What's Israel? What they're leading it. Why are we dying for Israel? This type of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't I have my own thoughts on it. I don't think it's anti-Semitic, but I also don't think it's super intelligent at the same time. Like, you can have your qualms with Israel. I get it. People do. But I think the whole just blaming everything on Israel. Actually, I did pull up the last end of his quote was this. As a veteran who deployed 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel. A lot of people highlighted that, and you're like, all right, man, like,
Which is,
speak what you will. Yeah. And again, totally respect the guy. It sucks.
Absolutely.
Like, Gold Star family.
Yeah.
Everyone can have their opinions. Totally understand. But you start kind of going, again, he can go down whatever rabbit hole he wants to go down.
Yeah.
But, those are, when people start seeing that, then they're not, good or bad or indifferent. They're not going to take you as seriously on this issue because, like I said, like, if you've just laid out, I've learned a ton in this last 30 minutes, and me and Nick have been tracking it. We've been trying to understand it, and we actually want to learn. The people that go day in and day out of their lives just hear the sound bits and just walk on with their day.
Yeah.
Seeing us bombing the shit out of Iran. I think there's a split on, like, awesome, we're doing this, and then I don't know. People are rooting for it to fail, which in my eyes is like, I hate that too, because I'm like, look, man, like, the upside of this is huge. Like,
it is.
If you could gain an ally and a foothold, by the way, I support Afghanistan on like, it's a completely different culture, but if we had established a foothold, whether or not their culture could sustain it, but at least we had a foothold.
Yeah.
Now it's a black hole. It's a black hole now. And so imagine the pain that we're going to suffer from that. And then if you can flip one of the biggest the attributor to, proxy wars and terrorism around the world, and they flip not only neutral, but to our side.
Yeah.
And then the people, the oil, not only just economically, it's not like, Afghanistan, yeah, you could get stuff out of the ground, but they can't support themselves like economically. No. Iran has oil. Like, this is huge. This is a massive thing. And so I feel like I get why people are fatigued with it, but I also, sometimes in my view, in my own thought process, I think doing the right thing is hard, and I think integrity. I think doing the right thing is hard, and I think this might be one of those times in history that, I pray it works out. I hope it doesn't not work.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I think the decisions that are being made because we have guys like Hegseth, because we have guys like J.D. Vance, because we have Trump that's in there. Yeah. They don't want these quote-unquote forever wars, which I agree with. Yeah. But I also, mistakes get made. But at the same point, I do think that this is a turning point in history. The fact that Venezuela has, is kind of an ally. Cuba's about to fall. Yeah. And now Iran we're working on that. And that's massive in the region.
Yeah, and then the Trump just created that, like, I forget what it's called, but it's like the League of the South American countries against, like, the cartels or whatever. That's awesome. Well, because you got the president of Argentina, who's like, a big, like, that dude is hilarious, especially with that haircut. And then you combine with who's the guy with the Supermax prison who cleaned up his country?
It's El Salvador.
El Salvador, yeah. Like, between those guys, like, they're just. And everybody's just seeing the benefits, everything like that. And, and I'll emphasize this again real quick. If you were to take out the Islamic Republic and the IRGC, a couple things are going to happen. One, majority of terrorist groups in that entire region, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Syrians, all the Shia militias in Iraq, the militias in Afghanistan, will lose majority of their funding and support. Majority of it. And then all of our other economic enemies, China, Russia, are going to lose oil. Like they don't get all of their oil, but they definitely get a decent amount, and there's definitely a lot of trading going on. So definitely it will hurt them. It's hurt Cuba, and that's actually one of the reasons for the blackouts because they used to get oil from Iran. And so by taking that Islamic Republic out, however it happens, that's the hardest part of this whole thing. How does that happen without boots on the ground? Because my personal opinion, I think it needs to happen without American boots on the ground, which makes it
I
exponentially harder to the point where it may or may not happen. But we do have they have laid out, degrading their missile capability, their Navy, and their drone program, their nuclear program, drone program, by at least 10 years, right? I definitely think that's a great metric, and then we could walk away and be like, hey, victory. But if the Islamic Republic was to go down, that would be such a great thing for that entire region of the world, if not adding benefit to the rest of the world.
Ukrainians are all for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. With the number of Iranian drones like flying over Ukraine like every single day, like I've had them over my head even.
Yeah,
and,
the Shaheeds and all the different,
Yeah, they sound like German Stukas.
Yeah, they're loud.
They make you run inside fast.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, and again, Ukraine, I'm not a huge fan of, the way Ukraine, I know the Ukraine, J.D. Vance, Trump, Zelensky asked me. I mean, I haven't, even my wife asked me because, she's a Democrat. And she's like, what do you think? I was like, yeah, I don't like how they acted. Like, I clearly back Ukraine. Like, I wish we would do more there.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's, I think that's where, and again, this is my own perception. I think there's a perception of Russia amongst people that aren't deep into geopolitics, like a very surface level of like, oh, it's the Russians. It's the guys we played in Call of Duty.
Yeah.
It's the fun vodka guys, And so I think Trump might have some, like, I think when he came on, it was like, oh, Putin, like he knew Putin not in war years, or in the years, like, because they didn't do anything while he was a president. So he thinks of Putin as like, well, he's, I can negotiate with him. Yeah. Like, hey, he's my buddy.
He actually did strikes against Putin. I believe in Syria. Yeah.
In Syria. Yes.
Yeah.
Syria,
he killed a bunch of Russians. And so that was kind of like everybody's like, oh, he's in Putin's thing, and he was one of the first people to start killing Russians.
Yeah.
After that one strike, it was a retaliatory strike, I believe, if I remember.
Yeah, I remember there was a meme that came out about that got shared between my platoon group chat. It was like when you're a Syrian soldier on a Russian base, and all the Russians pack up their gear and leave, and it's that meme of that guy going like he stares right at you and then does like one of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. And that's the thing too is you are correct, yeah. But I still feel like the proxy war stuff is always a bit different than like facing a whole conventional war head on.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think he's I'm like I said, we've talked with Nick about this. I also again I think it comes down to the Republican party when it comes to there's the interventionists and then there's the isolationists, and you can see there's a massive divide. That's clearly. And even run up to this election, it was a big issue. It's a very big thing. And I think a lot of people thought Trump was, more isolationist than what he really is. And it's like, no. Like if you look back, he's not a fan of Iran. Like they bring this up. Like they're still willing to kick some ass and willing to punch people on the world stage. Yeah, we're not going to invade people, but because if you see how he's handling Ukraine, he wants it to end. But he doesn't care which side. He's like, he wants the Ukrainians to give it up, and Ukraine's like, we don't want to do that. And Ukrainians are reluctantly, they know eventually it's going to kind of roll into their direction. But, I just think there's a big, and that's why I think with Iran, you have a lot of cautious people in the administration that are in his ear along with himself. Like I don't think this is just on a whim. Yes. So again, that's my take on it. I guess that's how kind of like what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And it is frustrating a bit because you are seeing, I mean, the first few days it's just like people are in shock, and now people are getting pissed. That, oh my God, we're spending all this money, or this is going to be a disaster. But you're seeing the incredible things that we're doing, with minimal damage, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is frustrations. Like I wish we didn't lose those guys in Kuwait. Like I feel like because I was in Kuwait. I did a deployment to Kuwait in the Guard, and so I know that area, and it's frustrating to me a bit that why were guys getting killed in Kuwait, But in the same, to me, that's not to say a failure of leadership. I think that might have just been people didn't realize that was going to happen.
Yeah.
They didn't anticipate, especially the Shahids. Like me and Nick have been in Ukraine. It's like, dude, they're shooting down Shahids with 50 cals. There's no reason.
Yeah.
They're not. You see it's a car not slowly. It's moving through the air that you can shoot it out of the sky. And it's frustrating that you're seeing these things and like causing significant damage. When you go to Ukraine, they're like, yeah, dude, we get hit with like 30 a night.
Yeah.
Like, this is not like, we're taking them out of the sky. So I think that disconnect, it was frustrating because American lives were lost. And I don't know if there was a Shahid drone that hit that facility that they were in, but it's still, it was frustrating for me because, again, with Nick, we've talked where it's like, we're so used to us not losing anybody or losing so little and winning so big that people immediately tuck tail, and us being all war fighters, we know not everyone's coming home.
Yeah.
And we have to finish the mission to have mission success.
Yeah. So I would say that I think one, if you think about how much damage we have caused and all the casualties we've caused on the Iranian side, the fact that we've only lost this few, obviously I would love to never lose anybody, but I think that there is like the fact that I think we just crossed it to 11 last time I think I saw the numbers was 11 killed. But I will actually go to your point about what I personally think about why they didn't shoot down those things is because those Air Force bases, when is the last time that they were ever threatened, right? And a lot of these bases in Ukraine, like one of the reasons why we shoot down that stuff, because we're in the shit and we're used to it. We're on guard. These places, nobody's attacked these places in a really, really long time. So like, if you were ever on, like when you were in Kuwait, and I've been there, passing through for different deployments, I was getting pedicures done, while I was in Kuwait. I don't have that threat. And the security guards, even though they're there, I guarantee you they're lulled to sleep because there's nothing that ever happened. So when this did happen, it kind of makes sense that I can see where they're like, okay, well, shit's real now. We need to be on guard. So, but I want to go back to something you said earlier, which was talking about kind of like the will to do things. And I have a personal firsthand experience with this in this particular situation. So outside of Iran's nuclear potential program of having missiles where they could do nuclear strikes on Israel, the other enemies, and then maybe eventually us, their biggest threat to the world is the Quds Force, which was led by Qasem Soleimani, which became, I think he took over in 1997 and he got killed in 2020. We knew that he was really, outside of the Ayatollah himself, the number one target, Soleimani himself. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, we have been tracked. So we killed him in 2020. We shot his plane when it landed somewhere. Actually, I believe it was Baghdad airport. I have firsthand knowledge that we've been tracking his plane since 2014. Actually, all three of his planes. And what we did in 2020 could have been done at any time since 2014. And do you know what president is responsible for killing Soleimani?
Yeah, Trump.
It was one of the last things he did before he left the office.
Yeah.
So the Obama had all the intelligence to kill him his entire. I'll give it to him. Like the fact that he had the balls, the cojones to pull off the Osama bin Laden raid in
2011.
Yeah, in 2011. Obama definitely there was intelligence while he was in office to get rid of Soleimani, and it was not done until Trump did it. And there's just a level of deterrence that we're creating right now, and that's kind of like the second or third order effects that are adding to this. Is people in that area are going to think twice, at least while Donald Trump is the president. So there's an added benefit there, whether or not you agree with him or not.
I agree. All right. So, Joe, thanks for coming on. We are going to switch over to the Spotify exclusive content, Vet TV content as well. So this whole episode will be going up on Vet TV. So subscribe over at Vet TV for you can actually use the code BREACH for $1 a month for the first 2 months for your subscription, and also check out Spotify exclusive content subscription and Patreon. So we're about to switch over here in a minute. Where can everyone reach you, gentlemen?
So you guys can find me on YouTube. It's the Stoic Viking, or Instagram, which is Stoic Viking 2025, where I put majority of my content. I mainly focus on long form content on YouTube, and that kind of gets trickled down to Instagram and the other accounts, mainly focusing on physical fitness, mental health, toxic leadership, talking about the things in the military we don't want to talk about, and then also trying to help people understand geopolitical situations from an apolitical point of view, mainly history and analysis.
Yeah, he's yoked. If anybody can't hear this, Joe is ripped. I watched a few of his Instagram reels and look at his photos. So, yeah.
I have about the same body type, shape, and size as Chris Hemsworth. I'm 6'2", 230 pounds.
Oh, dude, nice. That's awesome. I love that. I'm not 6'2", I'm 5'11", so you know, that's my excuse. Yeah.
6 foot on a good day.
Nick, what's going on, brother?
You guys can find me Battles and Beers on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Go subscribe to the channels on Vet TV or Spotify, and Patreon helps us out, helps us keep the channel going. Actually, it helps us out. That'd be amazing. We can keep doing what we're doing, and you guys can listen to a bunch of combat vets talk about current events and memes. So, all right, sweet. Switching over to Patreon.